Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So 3 years ago, 2016, Keith Pekau was tending to his landscaping business in Orland Park. Keith Pekau served our country in the Air Force, small businessman in Orland Park. And then, in their infinite wisdom, the board of Orland Park and their longtime mayor, Dan McLaughlin, voted to nearly quadruple the mayor's salary from $40,000 to $150,000
Oh, I remember this.
for the purposes of tripling his pension to make it north of $100,000 a year, essentially a net present value pension of $3 million for being a mayor of a community of 40,000 people, 50,000 people. So that galvanized Keith Pekau to step into the breach when no one else would and say, no, I don't think so. I don't think the mayor of Orland Park should be making more than the mayor of Paris. And he ran against McLaughlin, who hadn't faced competition in more than a decade.
Wow.
I supported him through the PAC that I run, in the interest of full disclosure. And he pulled off the upset. Then, for the first 2 years of his term, up until this April, he was beset by a board that was hostile to him, McLaughlin's rubber stamp board. So he couldn't get done a lot of the things that he wanted to get done. But the Orland Park residents, like the independents of a Pekau, who frankly is at odds with the establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats down in the Southwest burbs, they're almost indistinguishable anyway. And so they knocked out 3 trustees to give him control of the board effectively with people that are allied with his vision for local government. It can happen in Orland Park and the politics down there. I suppose it can happen elsewhere. Perhaps we need more Keith Pekaus. One of the things he committed to do, and it was the reason to support him, roll back that ridiculous salary increase and roll back the ridiculous pension benefits that politicians who attend 2 board meetings a month are in line to get under this kleptocratic model of statehood called Illinois. So yesterday he started moving with due speed, now that he's got allies on the board, in that direction. And that should be noticed. Maybe a green shoot out there. One little ray of hope in this otherwise wasteland. Keith Pekau, mayor of Orland Park, joins us now. Keith, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Dan and Amy.
So, good morning. So, you moved this week to rescind eligibility or enrollment of local elected officials, your board members, your clerk, yourself, the mayor's position, from pension benefits. Explain.
The 3 trustees that I supported in running, that all won, all ran on the platform that they would opt out of their pensions, but all like I did. But also, what I had learned over the last 2 years is we could actually stop elected officials from getting pensions immediately and going forward. So even those that are in the pension system, unlike employees, people who are in the pension system as elected officials, we could stop that, day one. And so the second meeting that we had, we introduced a resolutions to take all the elected positions, clerk, trustee, and mayor, and make them no longer eligible for pensions.
So your predecessor, Dan McLaughlin, what kind of pension is he going to be receiving? Do you know?
I think his pension at the time, because he was beaten, is going to be about $25,000. Had he won, his pension would have ballooned to over $100,000.
Big difference, and big difference for local taxpayers, as well as just the principle of the thing, of course, the sort of ruling class mentality. The implications for this going forward. So this is sort of like what we're talking about with some of the proposals for pension reform globally, which is benefits earned you get on a date certain going forward, new deal. That's sort of what you're doing in Orland Park.
It is for elected officials, and The major issue with pension, or one of the major issues with pensions, is that rather than using your average wage from your working life, the pension is based on the highest 4 years of earning in your last 10. So that's how elected officials have been gaming the system for years. They work a few hours a week, as you pointed out, and they get a full year credit for their pension. So after accumulating 25 or 30 years, then they try to find themselves a full-time position that pays them a six-figure salary. So in McLaughlin's case, he tried to raise his pay for his own position. Sometimes they lobby the new mayor to become village manager, which I experienced, or they run for a statewide office, or sometimes they use all their connections to get appointed to a high-paying position in a government agency, say like the tollway.
So did you opt out of your pension for political reasons or for moral reasons?
Moral reasons. I'm not a career politician, don't plan to be. We've instituted a term limit referendum as well. So I just morally think it's wrong. There's no reason for elected officials to get a pension, particularly for part-time work.
And explain how the salary deal works. The going from 40 to 150 grand. That you're committed to roll that back to 40 and make the position part-time again, as it should be. But how that works in terms of what you're able to do and when you're able to do it.
So when that was passed, they have to pass any changes in salary 180 days prior to an election. That's a good law because, one, it gives you the opportunity to vote someone out, which they did in this case. Also good so that they can't mess with the next guy. If they don't like him, they can bring his salary down. They can do whatever. I ran saying on your show that it's $150,000. That's what I'm going to earn, but I'm going to work full time to earn it. And then I'm also going to work to bring it down for the next term. I will bring it back down to the $40,000 it was and go back to part time. So during this last election, I actually put that forth on the board floor and got that passed back to $40,000. So it will go back to $40,000 at the end of my term.
And just give us a little bit of sense of what you've been dealing with, in the first 2 years as mayor, and with the politics down there, Republicans, at least Republicans titularly, as well as Democrats, the former mayor, his allies, names that people in the region may know that get involved in village politics down there. Because I think it's just sort of what you're doing, as I said at the outset, is a model, and it's also a bit of a cautionary tale for people who want to pursue this model. So give us the both sides of that equation.
Well, I've been attacked from all sides. So the establishment Republican Party didn't support me. In fact, they were supporting the other candidates who were Democrats for the last election because I think the quote was, "He doesn't understand how the game is played." Mm-hmm. So as the board itself, it was a 6-1 board against, and we still managed to get a lot done, but it was painful. Everything was a fight. I had to use the bully pulpit. I had to use the press. Essentially, I had to use the public to put the pressure on people to say, this is smart, let's do it. And they realized they had no choice but to do it or they would look foolish. So it's just a very challenging environment to deal with that every day, to know that every board meeting is a fight, every issue is a fight. And now that we have 3 trustees that are in it for the people of Orland Park, things will get done much more smoothly, much more easily.
And what's your first item on your agenda?
Well, the first item on our agenda was to opt out of the pensions and eliminate the pensions for elected officials. That was our first big item. We also have done a few other things. We expanded the road program that we have. We instituted a concert series, the first concert of what we hope to be a 3-concert series for the village, and it's actually budget neutral because we'll charge for tickets. And for 2 years, I was blocked of getting that done, and we did that on night 1.
One of the things that you've done, too, I just want to put some emphasis on it because I get the emails, is that you make the arguments. And so just the experience, like you said, perhaps provide a little bit more color and detail on that. It's just we're sort of relentlessly making the arguments in the face of the opposition. They call you names. They suggest you don't know how to play the game or how the game is played. And you just make, whatever the issue is, you're just laying out the case through email and obviously when you're bouncing around the community.
Facts are stubborn things. You keep hammering people with facts. Eventually, you can win the argument and you get the votes. And trying to play politics, that's how things have been done for years. How about we just give everyone the facts and then make the vote? And we won't always agree. But if you disagree with something, bring thoughtful facts to the table of how to improve things or why you're against something, as opposed to trying to do it for political reasons because you don't want this person to get the credit or that person to get the credit, or I want to line my pockets.
What one of the other issues that was particularly pressing when you ran was the debt load that the village is carrying. What are you doing to address the debt load that you inherited, and also, frankly, bring business to Orland Park, where you're up against a pretty unattractive climate with respect to property taxation?
You're right. The debt load had gone in 1998 from 13 million to north of 158 million when I ran. We've actually brought that debt load down over $40 million since I've been in office. We've been investing, I say investing, but using taxpayer money for a big development in our downtown, which hasn't gone very far in 18 years. I was able to convince the board to do what I ran on, which was to get this out to the development community, to give us a plan to develop the whole thing and get out of the development business as a village. And so that's going to save us a ton of money. And we have a really high debt rating because obviously we're a big town, but we still need to get our debt under control. There are things to use debt for example, the road program, something we're using it for. But borrowing at 2% and fixing your roads today as opposed to having them crumble and pay more for them to get fixed later makes a lot of sense because we actually save money in the long run. But that's what you use debt for. You don't use debt for a development downtown because it's your personal set of Legos that you're trying to put your stamp on the town with.
He is Keith Pekau, U.S. Air Force veteran and the first-term mayor of Orland Park. Perhaps a lot more interesting than Lori the Lightfoot. Maybe what's going on in Orland Park is something Lori the Lightfoot should study. Keith, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
He joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.